Hey guys, it's Ginger coming at you from the Traveler's Mindset with a new interview series after sort of a short summer hiatus. And today on the series, I have the social girl traveler. She's Jen Morilla, and she's coming at us from New Jersey. And I'm super excited to interview her because she actually has a really interesting story of how she got into travel and what she's doing with it nowadays, which is it was very inspiring when I heard about it. So I'd love to share her story with you and let her share the details. So welcome, Jen.
Aw, thanks, Ginger. That's so sweet of you.
Totally.
Very
Yeah.
excited to be here and excited to share my story. It is definitely an icebreaker for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. So where did you start? Like I know your upbringing was already exposing you to a lot of different types of cultures, and I'm curious like how you really got into the travels of the international sort and like where you're doing that now and even why. I know there's like a purpose to a lot of what you do now. So yeah, let's just start at the beginning.
Okay. So yes, I am based out of New Jersey, and like you said, I grew up with a lot of backgrounds, and definitely traveling. Both my parents are Cuban immigrants, and they were born in Cuba, and I was born here in the U.S. We were always going traveling as a family, like South, the Caribbean, South America, but we never did anything like Europe or Asia or anything like that. Like that for them was like too crazy. But when we went traveling, it was always very adventurous. Like my dad was always, snorkeling, diving, stepping outside, like getting us comfortable. I'm a big swimmer, my brother, my sister. And so my mom was always about like the cool restaurants and the yummy food and like, the five-star hotels. And I couldn't stay at five-star hotels, but she'd like to think we could. It was always a good time. And like I said, grew up traveling. Every summer we would spend a month out of the country. Or if it wasn't out of the country, it was in Florida, it was in the Keys,
Hmm.
and it was, I guess, the closest location to Cuba.
Yeah.
And so it was like,
Yeah.
fishing and going to weekend trips to the Bahamas and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So good times. But I actually started traveling by myself, and I got that travel bug when I studied abroad.
Hmm.
And that was in 2009.
Hmm.
I studied abroad in Spain, in Sevilla. And if you've ever been to Sevilla, it's absolutely beautiful. And
Yeah, totally. I
it's like
have
a
actually.
magical city. Yeah,
I
it's like a
agree.
magical city. I called it my Never Never Land because
Yeah.
I never wanted to leave, and I never wanted to grow up. Like, and every time I go back there, I feel the same way. Like, it's such a
Yeah.
great, beautiful city, and it's still, what I love about it is the culture is still there.
Yeah.
If you go to other parts of Spain, like Barcelona and Madrid, and it's still culturally based and stuff like that, but a lot of it is gone because there's so much tourism and there's so many different immigrants from all over. Um, and so yeah, I was in the South, and I think people don't go to the South because it's probably really hot over there,
Hmm.
like too
So
hot.
did you know that you wanted to go there? And also, like, I know for a lot of people when they're deciding whether they, can or want to study abroad, sometimes the whole, the question of finances comes up,
Right.
question of parents not wanting you to leave the nest comes up. So I'm curious, like, did you have any of that as like resistance or?
So actually, yes. So
Okay.
the real story. So I studied abroad in 2009, and it was not easy at all. I started planning for this in 2000, the fall of 2008. I had
Hmm.
gone to my parents, and I like laid everything out in terms of, money and what I was going to need and what was going to happen.
Sure.
And I have an older sister and a younger brother, and my older sister is the my best friend and the complete opposite of me. And because we grew up Hispanic, we're all like really close.
Hmm.
So my older sister was kind of like very comfortable with like being at home and living in this area and like traveling to like California or doing trips, but she was more of like, I would have to say, she's probably more of like my mom. And even now she's 30 and she has a kid and she's married and everything, and like they're all about like traveling,
Hmm.
but she's never steps out of her comfort zone. Like for her, putting on a backpack and traveling Southeast Asia is like crazy. Like she
Hmm.
thinks I'm mental, but she, salutes me. She's like, you got the guts. So, it was really big for my family because they were like, you're gonna study abroad. What? Like you're no, that's not safe. Like, and you're
Was
gonna
it
go to
because it
Spain.
was alone or what was the?
Yes, because I
Okay.
was alone, and it was like, it was because I was alone. It was also a cultural thing. Like I was gonna leave them for 6 months. Like
Got
how was
it.
I really gonna do that?
Yeah.
When I went to college, I went to Pace University, and I am right outside of the city. Like I live in like Edgewater, Hoboken, New Jersey, which is, and everybody's familiar with that area. It's maybe like 15, 20 minutes driving without traffic.
Got it.
into the city,
Yeah.
into the city. So it's right there.
Hmm.
And I didn't commute. I actually lived in the city. I lived in Brooklyn. I lived in downtown.
Hmm.
But I was able to like come home quickly. So if
Yeah.
my mom was like, "Hey, we're gonna,
Yeah.
we're gonna have a great dinner tonight," like come. It was like an hour commute home and then
Right.
an hour back. So it
Yeah.
wasn't so bad.
So it's like different than across an ocean and back. A little.
Right.
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 Okay. So they didn't like that you would be farther away from them, basically.
Right, exactly. And so it was one of the biggest things for them. And it wasn't, I mean, I'm fortunate enough for that. And I love my parents and I am forever grateful and thankful for that because they, financially speaking, they gave me, my sister, and my brother 4 years of college.
Wow.
And yeah, and that was something that I love them for that. I don't know how they did it because I know it's so hard.
Yeah.
So studying abroad for them wasn't a financial thing. It was just leaving the nest. Like it was actually
Mm.
cheaper. It was actually cheaper than spending a semester in New York.
Yeah. It can
And that's
be.
yeah,
That's the
and
tricky part. People
it
don't
really
know about that. Yeah.
yeah, and they were just like, "What? That's impossible." So it was this whole mission impossible, and it was literally a year of me arguing and fighting, and my dad at one point was like, it was a Saturday night. I came home and I was gonna go out with friends, and he was like, "If you're not home by 1, I'm not signing that paper." And I was
Mm.
like, "What?"
Wow.
And I was like 20 years old,
Putting the
and
pressure on
yeah,
dad. Go,
it's like,
dad.
oh. No. And so I was like, well, sure enough, I was home by 12:30.
Yeah.
Like my friends were like, "Are you?" And I was like, "I don't care. Like you guys
Sure.
don't understand. I really want to do this." And to them, it was like, it was funny too. My mom was like, "Why don't you go with friends?"
Hmm.
And I was like,
That's what a
such a
lot of people say, right? That's an objection that comes up a lot. Why are you doing this alone? Like, why don't you
right.
go with people?
And I said to her, and I was like, "I don't want to." And she's
Yeah.
like, "What?" And I was like, "My friends are awesome, and I mean, my college girls were great, and I would have had a blast." But to me, it was like, okay, why would I go 1,000 miles away to go with the same people and do the same things that I could do here? And you'll end up doing the same things, just in a different place. So it's not as much fun. Like I wouldn't be able to get to know myself.
Yeah.
And so I had that conversation with my mom, and she kind of,
Yeah.
smoothed my dad into it.
Yeah.
So finally, my parents said yes, and I was like the happiest girl ever. And I had left in September of 2009, and I was abroad for about 5 to 6 months.
Wow. Awesome.
And
What a great
that,
start, you know?
yeah,
Like it's a, I think where a lot of people who want to do this and are in the right age group, that study abroad experience, like, at least for me as well, it was a really good entry point. Got my language skills up to a really great level. Obviously, you were already fluent in Spanish, so it wasn't really an issue,
no, but it
but
definitely
totally
helped a
different
lot.
type of Spanish, right?
Yes, yes,
So,
yes,
yeah.
totally
um,
helped.
and then I'm guessing anyway, that this sparked some sort of like travel addiction that normally happens. And now, so let's just talk about the whole after college section of your life, because of course, at some point, even if you come from a family who does support you in traveling, especially financially, that at some point you have to pay your way yourself, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
So you've obviously traveled a lot more since then, and you've figured out ways to make it work. So I'm really curious, like, how have you made it work? Where have you been? And yeah, let's just start there.
So yeah, right after I, studied abroad and everything and I graduated college, I went back to working. I was still like really into traveling, but my parents were like, okay, well, that's it. We're not going to pay for you anymore. You're a big girl.
Totally.
So totally saved up money and budgeted and I continued traveling. But what I realized that after I graduated and I was working for years, working for an agency in the city, I kind of wanted to go back and live abroad again. Like I
Yeah.
really missed the European lifestyle and it's such a different mindset.
Yeah.
And so I went back, and so there's ways around it, right? You can get a job, which is really hard to find. And in order to do that, you need a sponsorship, depending on the location. And in some countries, it's harder than others. Like I could go back and teach English,
Hmm.
and that's a lot easier in Spain to get a visa for versus going back and getting a marketing position in Madrid.
Exactly.
Like
Right.
it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
Um, so I kind of still wanted to go back to school because I felt like I had missed out on something different. So I went back and I actually started attending. I went back to school for my master's and I moved to London.
Got
And
it.
so I was living in London for about a year.
Hmm.
Actually, yeah, it was about a year. And then I was doing a master's out there for social entrepreneurship
Awesome.
at Hull International Business School. So I was there for 10 months and then two months in Brazil.
Hmm.
And then I went back to London.
Wow, Brazil.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
I was
like,
in Sao
yeah.
Paulo. Yeah. I know. And it was awesome. And
And that
that
was
was
part of the degree then,
yes,
or
that was part of the
okay,
degree.
got it.
I
Yeah.
was doing like some research and work and the
Yeah.
collaboration of stuff. Um, And so yeah, I was out there, went back to London, came back to the States.
Yeah.
I got a job
Hmm.
as a marketing agency, so nothing to do with my degree. And if you know anything about social entrepreneurship, it's kind of like nonprofit sector. It's a different way of I would say like a social business. So it's like
Hmm.
making profit but giving back as
Hmm.
well.
Exactly.
It's to make like a long story short.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I was working at a marketing agency, and I was there for about 2 years. And during this whole time, well, during the 2 years, I traveled. I was making a decent amount of money and I was saving. And it's all about saving. It's
Yeah.
all about cutting back. So it's literally setting up a time frame. So if I knew, for example, I had did a trip with my best friend to Colombia in July 2014, and I had booked the tickets in advance. Um, and we knew where we were going to go. I was going to visit some friends out there. I knew, I wanted to save money. I wanted to have a good time. So it
Hmm.
was all about budgeting, and like I had a separate account just for that. Like I knew that that was going to be my Colombia money. That I knew I was going to have a good time.
Hmm. So
Um,
when your paycheck came in, you literally prioritized travel above some other things like probably partying or
yes,
other
yes,
like clothes,
right,
whatever.
right, yes,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. I don't
Just to
shop as
make
much as
sure.
I'd like to.
Gotcha.
Don't shop as much as I'd like to, unless it's like a thrift store or something like that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. But I
Which
cannot
is
walk.
more sustainable. Let's be real. It is more
Yeah,
sustainable. So,
yes, I
speaking
cannot
of
walk
that.
into, you know, Ralph Lauren or I don't know, Gucci and buy myself. It won't ever happen, which I'm okay with that, to be honest. Because I'd
Yeah,
rather, I think it's also, like you said, it's like, I think it's a mindset. Like you genuinely prioritize what you really want. Like I'd rather spend $1,000 on a trip
totally.
than spend $1,000 on a handbag.
Yeah. I would be on
That's,
your team in that one.
yes,
Yeah,
that's just I know people that wouldn't even think
totally.
about that. For them, it's the bag, which is fine. I mean,
Exactly.
each
Yeah.
his own. So yeah, it's definitely prioritizing and saving money.
Hmm.
And it's kind of, there were nights that I couldn't go out because I went over budget and I couldn't like my weekly budget. That
Hmm.
was it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that
I
was
mean, there's
definitely
an aspect of personal responsibility that you cultivate when you are planning for something like that because number one, like if you do some trip planning, you look into the flight costs, you look into potential accommodations, and you say, okay, this is my number. Then you
hmm
break it down and you say, okay, how many weeks or how many months do I actually need to like work towards this? And then there's the aspect of, okay, I'm really committed to
yeah,
this as a dream like coming true in my life.
yeah,
And it looks like where you had a lot of success was actually sticking to that commitment
yes,
and making it happen,
yeah,
which, obviously looks like took some time, but you totally made it happen. So
yeah, yeah,
kudos. Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, so I right after studied abroad and I went traveling, and that the bug, I think once that bug bites you, it's almost impossible to get rid of. And I haven't decided if it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's definitely a good thing, but it definitely has this double-edged sword.
Sure.
Um, and so I was with the agency for 2 years and I was making good money.
Mm-hmm.
And I came to a point that I was looking at my life and I was literally stuck at a cubicle. I was working nonstop. And although I really liked what I was doing, I didn't like what I was working in.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I didn't have any purpose. Like I wasn't doing anything that mattered. Like
Mm.
they could have hired somebody better as me, just as good. Like
Yeah.
it didn't really matter. And so I guess you could say I had more of like this moment that I just realized like I want more to life. Like this
Yeah.
cannot be it. Like I was not born to just sit here or go to different agencies and just do this forever and then go on, work my ass off and then once a year go on a 2 week trip. Like,
Right.
no.
Yeah.
Like that's not cool. Like I don't think that's okay with me.
Yeah. For sure.
And I set up a plan.
Great.
I said to myself that I was either going to move to another state and work in another state, or if I didn't find a job by this specific day,
Mm-hmm.
then I was going to quit my job, buy a one way, take all my savings, and travel.
Awesome.
And that's exactly what I did. And I literally stuck to a plan. And people come to me all the time, like, how did you do it? Did you just like get up and go? And I was like, no,
No.
that would be stupid. Because if anybody that says like you don't need money, like, no, you do need money.
Totally.
You do. You need to eat, and it costs money. So yes, you do need money. But it's all about prioritizing what your necessities are.
So what
And
did this plan look like? If someone listening would want to like replicate your plan, like what can you share that like how do they do it? Like did you make a spreadsheet or did you write something down in your journal or what was it?
I was actually looking for that piece of paper. It was one day that I just had a bad meeting with a client. I spent the day like just done. Like it was one of
Yeah.
those days that I got home and I was like, I don't, that's it. Like I'm not doing this anymore.
Hmm.
And I sat down and I was like, okay, it is August 2014, right? Yeah, I was August
Yeah.
2014. How am I going to do this? I have this much in my bank account and I have this much in my savings.
Hmm.
What are my valuables? What can I get rid of? How do I want to do this?
Yeah.
And like I said, I had two plans. So it was either get a job in another state
Yeah.
or leave. And deep down inside, I guess you can say I really did just want to leave.
Yeah.
Because I did apply to jobs outside of the States. I did apply to jobs in other states as well.
Hmm.
And I did get offers and I did get things on the table. And I found as like time went on that um, everything that I was getting was the same thing that I was doing in New York.
Mm.
And so I was like, okay, that's not really what I want to do.
Yeah.
So it defeats the purpose because if I were to move to Boulder
Right.
and do the same thing that I was doing over there, a few weeks later I'd probably be miserable because
Hmm.
it's not really what I want to do.
There you go.
So it's about coming to terms with that and realizing that.
Totally.
And that didn't take time until like 3 months after August that I was like, okay, you know what? I just really want to travel. And I don't want to just spend money. Like I want to do it with a purpose. Like I want to have like an end result to this.
Nice.
Because yes, traveling is beautiful and all that great stuff, but like I do have to put on my big girl pants and I do need to like touch base with reality and like what's the point of all this? Like what am I actually doing?
Totally.
So definitely coming up with a plan, dates. You need to set dates. You can't say, oh, around November, around December. Like that's not going to happen. Like you need to set actual dates and you need to be honest with yourself. Like sit down in front of a mirror and be like, okay, Jennifer, like
Yeah.
that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I set up a plan. I set up a date. I sold a lot of clothes. I sold my car. I packed up a lot of stuff. I gave away stuff. Like I got rid of a lot of stuff.
Hmm.
I was living with my parents, so that in itself was awesome because I saved a lot of money. I didn't have to pay rent at the time, so it was great.
Hmm.
And I saved a lot, like literally cut going out altogether.
Yeah.
Like my going out was to a friend's house to drink a glass of wine. Like I was like done. Like no, I'm not. Like I don't want to. I want to be elsewhere.
Yeah.
And my mind was just so focused.
There you go.
And oh, I think the most important thing that I would tell somebody if somebody's seriously thinking about changing their life, whether it is just moving to another state or, doing something completely out of the norm, and it's something you desperately want, don't tell a soul. Do not tell a soul unless you're like, you really like it's something bad, but like,
For
I
sure.
really hope not,
Yeah.
but like don't tell anybody, like really stick to your guns and like plan it out. Don't tell anybody because what's going to happen is that people are going to give you their opinions. And although it's in good intentions, you might not really like it. And I think that definitely slows you down and it makes you double guess yourself and like, is that what you really want?
Totally.
So when I thought about this, I didn't tell anybody. Like I spent 6 months zipped and I didn't tell my family. I didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
I didn't tell anybody until after I bought the ticket and then I waited like 3 days and then I told them.
Yeah.
And I didn't ask them. I kind of was like, this is my plan. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And again, for my family, it was like, what?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like, I thought you were done with this. Like, I thought you were just going to keep traveling and coming back. And I was like, no, I don't think I belong here. Like, as much as I love New York, I don't feel like I'm at home anymore. And I think it's because I've lived so much outside of it.
Yeah.
And I've experienced so much. I know that there's different stuff and I know that there's more.
Yeah.
And
so this
I think
was kind of your stake in the ground. And really, I'm so curious because it seems like there's a huge like conflict internally when you put a stake in the ground and you really stand for something that you want for yourself, that externally it's viewed as very selfish. But I would guess that this has been also your experience, that when you've actually taken that time to do whatever it is that's really true to you, that the results of that action they have massively positive ripple effects, even for those people who like originally are against it. So that was my experience. I don't know, for you, was it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah? Okay,
absolutely.
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely. My parents, I mean, when I told them I was leaving, they were like, "What? Like, well, you're leaving us?" And then it wasn't until like months later that I got out there and like my mom started to see what I was actually doing and like be more a part of it. She was like, "Wow, like, this is great." And even being back home now and I'm leaving again soon, they're kind of like, "Well, what are you going to do out there? Like, why are you just going to Asia?" And I actually like sat down with them and I was like, "This is what I'm doing. Like, stop. Like, look." And I laid out the plan and I told them exactly what I was going to be doing and they were like, "Oh, wow. Like, you're not just traveling.
Wait, so
Like,
can you fill us in? Like what, so this
okay.
Asia trip, it's coming up obviously. What where are you going and what are you doing with a purpose there?
Okay. So, well, let me backtrack and tell you a little bit about my blog. So,
Sure, yeah.
when I started my blog, it was kind of just for fun. Like, I didn't think anything of it. When I left Europe, I was I actually when I left Europe, I was in London for a couple of weeks and I was doing interviews out there because I had applied to jobs and people were responding and I really loved London. So I was like, I really think I want to be there. Um, and so I did get an offer, and long story short, they came to me and they were like, we can't actually, because of the whole visa process, which is a whole big issue,
Hmm.
we can't actually just give you a visa. Like, it's going to take some time, and the paperwork has to be put in through like our fiscal year, and it doesn't start till September.
Hmm.
And this was like April. And so I was like, what the hell am I going to do? And I was like,
Hmm.
well, I have all the savings. Like, I'm going to go have fun. I'm going to go explore.
Hmm.
So I did this walk called El Camino de Santiago. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah, the Camino, of course. Yeah,
Yes.
I
So I did.
actually shortcutted that and just visited Santiago. I did not walk the pilgrimage,
Yeah.
unfortunately, but
You should
it's
do it
on my
one day.
bucket list. It's on my bucket list. Yep.
Yes, you should do one day.
Okay.
It is not a leisurely walk.
No, no, no. It's
So,
legitimate. Yeah.
yes, I didn't do the whole thing. I did halfway because I did it by myself, and I was like, all right, I'm no superhero. Like, let's chill, slow my roll. And so, yeah, so I did from Leon to Santiago, and I spent 2.5 weeks walking. And I think there is where I actually realized, like, or not realized, I think I just finally had the courage to be like, I
Mm.
don't want to live in one place for right now. I think I want to
Yeah.
continue to do what I'm building. And I had already started my blog. And while I was doing the Camino, I was getting responses from people who were like, touching base with me on social media and like following me. And they were just like, oh my God, like what you're doing is awesome. Like it's so inspiring. And I was like taken back. I was like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, it's just a walk. But it wasn't until like later on as like time progressed that I was like, okay, like this is really cool. So the point of my blog is, yes, I am a travel blogger, but I believe in giving back to the countries that I visit to.
Nice.
Not all countries you need to give back to because, like, sometimes you go to Rome and you don't really need to give back, but you can volunteer and you can do stuff like that. So, and I don't do that in all cases, but I try to do it as much as I possibly can.
And so when
Um,
you say give back, I like what does that mean, especially like for this upcoming trip? Like what's it all about?
I leave in 3 weeks and I will be in Southeast Asia. I'll be backpacking through Southeast Asia for about a month, and it's
Mhm.
actually turning into a little bit more than a month.
Awesome.
So, yeah, so I'm excited about that. I will be in Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, and Indonesia.
Oh wow, that's a lot
Yeah,
for just like a month.
yeah, yeah, I know. Actually, Cambodia and Laos won't be as long as Thailand and Indonesia.
Got it.
And it's looking like in Thailand, I will be volunteering. It's not 100% certain, so I actually don't want to say anything yet.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, I'll be volunteering at certain camps doing different things. And in Indonesia, I am actually, because it's such a big problem out there, it's the water source.
Hmm.
And so I don't know if you ever heard of Waves for Water. It's a big nonprofit organization.
What is the name of it? Waves?
Waves for Water.
Okay.
Waves for Water. It's a big nonprofit organization, and what they do is they provide filters. But the really cool thing about this organization that I really liked, because like I looked at organizations, I looked at Charity Water,
Hmm.
and all that stuff, and what I really liked about these guys was that they were. Hold on, my computer is about to die, and I don't
That's
want
no
this
good.
to end.
Gotta inject that power.
No.
Seriously.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so we're good. We're good to go. So, what I really liked about them is that they attract or they target travelers.
Hmm.
And what I mean by travelers is like the backpacking traveler,
Totally.
the person that doesn't have an exact schedule,
Hmm.
doesn't have a full itinerary, but knows that they're going to be here from A to B.
Hmm.
Or from A to Z, and they're going to be doing, or they were going to be doing this, and they're going to be meeting up with friends. The kind of traveler that kind of embeds themselves in the community and really gets to know the culture. And I do think that they're different types of travelers. I think you could agree with me on that.
Definitely. Yeah.
And so yeah, they target that specific traveler who wants to kind of like help out and give back to communities that they travel to. And Indonesia has a big problem with water. So with them, they have filters, like these water filters, these plastic water filters. And the actual program is called Waste for Water Carrier Service, or Courier Service, sorry.
Courier. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And you set up a fundraiser online, your budget, your time frame, where you're going,
Hmm.
how much you actually do, and you spread it out through your social networks. So
Hmm.
like Facebook, Twitter, everything like that, and people donate.
And so they donate money to sponsor the filters, and then you take the filters with you, or okay,
Yes.
so that's how it works.
Yeah.
Got it.
So for example, I set it up last week, targeted 15 filters. I don't think I'm going to make it to 15 filters because I leave so soon.
Okay.
Um, but like right now, I already have three.
Got it.
So, and ideally, because I am taking just a backpack,
Mm-hmm.
I could probably only fit five or
Got it.
six filters. But each filter gives water to 100 people
For how long?
for, I think it was up to 5 years.
Oh, great. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that within itself, if I can bring five, it's
There
500
you
people
go.
I give water
For
to.
5 years. And that's
Yeah.
like a really awesome way to like make your travel mean more than just, oh, I'm gonna go and party. Because I think there's a huge stigma around the backpacker, and
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be just that. And I mean, great, if you want to do that, that's awesome. But there's like totally a lot more that you can incorporate in that. So it sounds like you're doing that, which is awesome.
Absolutely. I feel like I mean, it's totally a different mindset. And like my biggest thing for me is that like I just can't just sit down and do nothing. Like I'm always on the go. There has to be a purpose to what I'm doing. Like I don't think it's like, oh, don't get me wrong. I have my lazy Sundays where I could literally spend an entire day on Netflix and just totally be okay with it. But I think everybody has a right to have that. But I'm not the kind of person that can do it every single day. Like I constantly have to be moving. And so for me to just say I'm just going to travel, like as awesome as I love just sitting on a beach and tanning, God knows I need it. I don't. After like 2 or 3 days, I'm kind of like,
Yeah.
what do I do with
What's
myself?
next?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Sounds
I
like
think this is such a great opportunity. And I mean, I really enjoy it. I meet such great people and
yeah.
friends that you wouldn't even believe, like people that I'm in touch with. Even now, I'm not even getting there yet. And like, I'm just,
Yeah.
helping out organizations. They're like, hey, Jen, like, we can't wait for you to get here. Like,
That's a
we're so.
great point, actually. I think a lot of people, when they start traveling, they don't know how to even get plugged into different communities. But it sounds like you found a really great way just by being already proactively engaged
Yeah.
with the organization. It sounds like they're like opening their doors to you, like, hey, come
Yeah.
visit
Yeah.
us in person. And yeah,
Yeah, yeah. No,
cool.
it's all through
Awesome.
social media. I mean, our generation has such a great advantage. The fact that
Totally.
you can connect with somebody in Indonesia right now at this very moment. Like,
Or in
okay,
New
they're sleeping.
Jersey or in
Yeah,
Boulder.
right. You know what I mean? But like,
For sure.
and it's just and it's so easy, and all you have to do is send a message. Like
Yep.
that's it. You don't have
That's
to.
it.
I mean, it was harder for people back then.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my purpose. Like I travel, and I give back to the countries, and ideally, like it's something that I want to do for the rest of my life. I think that if more people had that mindset,
Mm-hmm.
you know, bring if you're packing a tank top and you have two tank tops and one you really like and one you like, but you're kind of like, there are people out there that actually need stuff like hair
Yeah, depending
barrettes.
on where you're going, or
Exactly.
like
Like,
feminine products, like that's a huge thing if you're
oh,
traveling anywhere in Africa, for example. Not
hmm,
anywhere, but in specific areas.
yeah.
But yeah, I think you raise a really good point. It's like, well, if you can shift that mindset, it sounds like you're already doing a little bit to raise the awareness in your own friend circles and communities.
Hmm.
Looking at travel as an opportunity to share, what you can share,
Hmm.
whether it's like culturally or whether it's a physical thing, like some product that actually does good where
Right.
you place it, like a water filter, for
Right.
example.
And I don't know if you've seen like so my what I've launched online is kind of like help me pack. And my whole like story behind it is that I want people to understand that like you're giving this money and I'm not just going to take it and tell you that I've like done filters because I think one of
Right.
the biggest issues with like donations is that you assume that it's going to go to the right places at the right time, but you don't actually know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would be really awesome because we have this social media and because we have all these platforms where like you can connect at any time in the world. Um, as as well as you can. I don't know because it all depends on Wi-Fi, but you actually can connect. Like, can put up a picture showing you, like, hey, this filter
Yeah.
was from blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And so that's what I plan to do. Like, I plan to take these filters, and for example, I know somebody paid each filter's $50.
Mm-hmm.
So I know somebody who donated $50 on one filter. I'm going to put her name on that filter.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take a picture and it's going to be on social media. I'm going to put it on my vlog. Like I'm going to let people know like, hey, Marissa, this is what you did for this family
Yeah.
or for this community.
Totally.
And I think that brings so much value. Like you can't physically be here because, you have a family and you're doing stuff as you should be because you're a mother. You know what I mean? I was like, but
or
I can't.
take your kids traveling. That's like I would be the advocate for that. I know that's trickier, but
Me
it's
too.
doable.
It is doable, but it's definitely harder. but I'm not there yet.
No, no, no. It wasn't implying anything.
Yeah. But yeah, no, but definitely. And so I think that that's one of the really cool things about what I'm doing. It's just that I'm going to be able to show you like, hey, I'm,
Yeah.
asking
You're
you to give
making an impact, and
right.
here it is, literally
Yeah,
in person. This is what happened. Well,
exactly.
that's super inspiring. I think it's awesome that you're doing that, and I'm actually really grateful that you're spreading that mindset and you're spreading the traveler's mindset, and like
Thank
all
you.
sorts of good stuff is
Yeah.
happening because of that. So, well, I guess so. My last question for you is, if you were to give yourself, your younger self, like one piece of advice with regards to travel, or whatever, getting your passport or taking that first step out onto the road, overcoming fear, like what
Mhm.
would it be?
I was thinking about that the other night.
Oh,
I was
really?
like, if I could tell myself, my younger self, something. Yeah, because I was thinking about doing it as like a blog post.
Sure, sure, sure. Yeah.
Especially because I've never been to Asia. I've never been to that side of the world.
Yeah.
Um, oh, and my last stop is Australia, by the way. So I'm very
Oh,
excited.
fun.
And yeah, it's like I could have never imagined me actually like doing this. Like I thought about it and I knew that it was going to happen one day, but I didn't know
Yeah.
it was going to happen so soon. Just a different
Especially if
mindset.
your sister and your mom are telling you that you're crazy. I mean, like,
Right,
there's a
exactly.
lot of mental stuff to overcome in
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
So,
yes, yes,
yeah.
yes. Um, but I think if there's one thing I can tell my younger self would be, just, and I know it's really cliche, but I seriously mean it. Just do it. Like if you have that feeling inside
Yeah.
of you, you know what I mean? Like if you
Yeah.
have that feeling, that passion inside of you that's telling you from the get-go, like go for it. I honestly I wish I could have started sooner. I
Yeah.
wish that when I graduated, I actually had the courage to just go. To like I didn't have to live in another country or I didn't have to
Mhm.
do like I could have just gone. Granted, if I probably didn't live in another country, I probably wouldn't have had even more of an itch to like leave again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I am thankful for that.
For
But
sure.
if I could tell something to a younger self, it would be to seriously sit down, be real with yourself, like set real goals.
Yeah.
And if you really want to do it, do it. You should absolutely do it. It's your life.
Right.
And at the end of the day, like we are living on borrowed time and you really don't know. And I do think that everybody's here for a purpose.
Awesome. That's super inspiring, and I definitely like am on the same page with you. So you're like speaking my language right now. It's awesome.
Good.
Well, thank you, Jen. Like really, thank you for taking the time to share your story. I'm sure it's going to help at least one person, and that's always like the mission. If we can help at least one person,
Yeah.
take more action, or like really work towards traveling outside of the country, or do something that's just outside of their comfort zone, then I think we've made a really positive difference, and hopefully created a new traveler somewhere out there. So thank
Yes.
you.
No, thank you, Ginger.
Yeah, and if people want to find out more about you or about your blog or about the filters, or if they can do something like that, where should they find you online?
So they can check me out at thesocialgirltraveler.com or find me on Facebook at The Social Girl Traveler.
Yep.
Everything is The Social Girl on all my platforms. And I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and obviously my blog. Actually, Twitter is just Social Girl because somebody took Social Girl Traveler.
Oh, snap.
I know.
Well,
But yeah,
you sound very social, so so if
so
people want to like get in touch, they can just direct message you or whatever, and you're open
absolutely.
to that.
Oh,
Awesome.
absolutely. They can message
Great.
me. I'm always responding to people.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. And it was Waves for Water, right? Was that
Yes, Waves for
company
Water. You
a
can find,
charity?
yes, it's a charity, and you
Great.
can actually, if you go to the website, it'll be more difficult to actually find me through that. But if you go on my Facebook
Mm-hmm.
or on my, actually my Facebook would just be easier. If you go on my
Sure.
Facebook and you click on the most recent post, it's pinned to the top of my Facebook.
Boom. There
You
you
can
go.
go ahead and
So if people
yeah,
want to donate and support and help send some filters over to get people clean water in Indonesia, then they can do that too.
yep,
So yeah, all sounds awesome. Thank you
yep.
so much, Jen. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Likewise.
Totally.
Bye.
See ya.